I was fortunate enough to take part in a design charade back in 2021, where a bunch of architects, urban designers, city planners, and academics are brainstorming ideas to revitalize West End, a community near the Calgary downtown core due to the lack of everyday amenities, disconnect from the downtown core, and slow to gain traction within the development industry. Lots of ideas were being tossed around, but the one thing that stuck with me is a quote someone said that described Calgary perfectly. Calgary is great. It's so close to the mountains. Calgary is a relatively young city, similar to other Canadian cities. As such, there's a tendency to lean towards a marketing approach when it comes to showing off the town. The city has called itself the land of the golden wheat in 1906, the city of foothills in 1921, the Stampede City in the 40s, the city with everything under the sun in 1951, and around the early 2000s, Calgary unveiled the slogan, the heart of the New West, embracing its cowtown stampede heritage. But Calgary wants to move beyond Western stereotypes, and so by 2015, the city revealed a new slogan, part of the energy. The line isn't exactly enticing as a tourist slogan, and it's not supposed to. The slogan, according to Calgary Economic Development President and CEO Mary Morin, was originally created to attract labor for the energy sector, even though in the 2018 interview she started to explain that it may be hard to attract investment to the energy sector, but there is a lot of interest in other sectors like health, agriculture, and technology. And therein lies the problem. Calgary has an identity crisis. After trying to reform from the Stampede City moniker, Calgary has been struggling to find its footings in its urban side. Calgary wants to be simultaneously a city for startups, for software development, for technology, but also a city for artists, for heritage. In the end, Calgary became a pit stop city, the place you set your home base when you head off to Banff or Canmore or the Stampedes, but rarely for the city itself. And I'm not the only one who feels Calgary is struggling for an identity. Ismahan Razavi, current director and strategy lead of the NDP caucus, said that Calgary is a corporate city whose greatest success lies in a vision of the past, waiting for empty office buildings and quiet downtown streets to one day return to their former glory. But it's also a vibrant, diverse, and dynamic place where we are not only ready to embrace the future, but also to be the ones who built it. Professor Harry Hiller frames Calgary as a revivist city, a city that has broken out of its old mold and is becoming something new. But it's still a city in progress and has not arrived at an end state. So how does Calgary build a cultural identity for itself to move from cowtown to something more? Perhaps we could start with two things, space and time, specifically more public spaces and less travel time. In Jane Jacobs' The Death and Life of Great American Cities, she described public spaces as places to provide contact opportunities between strangers and acquaintances in a public setting. It's a casual and limited contact with a degree of anonymity and no obligations, encouraging interactions while providing a safe space to do so. It's these interactions, not solely the spaces themselves, but these people's interactions with the space and each other, that provides whole experiences and happenings in the urban fabric, creating place identity. So where do we start building public spaces? How about art spaces? Calgary had a strong start on facilitating art spaces in the late 1800s, but since the opening of the Performance Arts Center in the mid-1980s, Calgary now lags behind most cities in Western Canada on many measures related to arts and cultures. Existing spaces are operating at capacity, performance art seats per capita is at a single digit, and most spaces in Calgary are aging and in need of reinvestment. As arts and culture plays a central role in Calgarians' view of what it means to have a high quality of life, providing Calgarians a dedicated space for active creation and collaboration is needed to generate that socio-spatial interactions, creating distinguishing experiences for users and further develop the cultural identity of Calgary. The same can be said about public spaces. On the City of Calgary's website, only downtown parks are listed as public spaces, ignoring public libraries, outdoor seating areas, non-admission museums, riverfronts, and existing heritage sites, places where people are already congregating. The lack of both art spaces and public spaces isn't due to the lack of space, but a lack of effective utilizations. Existing heritage buildings are left vacant for years, while multi-level C-train stations are dedicated to singular tasks of hosting C-train riders. The city doesn't need a multi-billion-dollar arts center or modernistic squares. It needs small-scale sustainable events, utilizing existing spaces to showcase the art and host activities.
We did the development of cities, but we should consider a city in a different light, especially in the central Tokyo north. There's Tokyo University of Art, University of Tokyo, and so on. So we should like to take advantage of these kind of cultural assets and the possibility that is hidden here.
This is Professor Shinya Yoshimi, an instructor at the University of Tokyo's Interfaculty Initiative on Information Studies. In his talk in 2015 about Tokyo's urban identity and globalization, he mentioned strengthening the cultural core of central Tokyo North by renovating existing structures, creating walkable connections between tourist spots, but most importantly, providing streetcars to travel while seeing the city, something the city has eliminated in 1964, but was brought back via shuttle buses. Calgary is one of the first cities in North America to have its own light rail system, and both the MAX lines and the BRT lines provides rapid transit to areas not covered by C-train. But most parts of the city is still not undercovered or underserved by the transit system, while reliability issues, especially in the winter, creates a barrier to potential users to fully utilize the system. We need to connect the aforementioned public spaces with street buses, transit systems, walkable paths, and the Plus 15 to make sure each and every node is approachable, compressing the city into one cohesive space to navigate. We're seeing moves from the city of Calgary with its Green Light project, but we should also utilize these C-train stops and bus stops as points of interaction. Andrew Lee, Rural Placemaking Mobility and Identity, noted the importance of these mass rapid transit systems as a tool of placemaking in urban infrastructure, as these spaces are not only where flows of good and capital occur, but through structured interactions and routinized behavior on a daily basis, are where shared sociality and a collective identity are cultivated, building up that cultural identity for the urban fabric. One thing's for sure, Calgary needs to spend its time to understanding its existing infrastructure, its points of interest, its public spaces, and its citizens to cultivate a stronger local identity. And only then can we start looking outside and start marketing Calgary as it truly is, a city of the future.